Commander Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars drift past the viewport. He had been traveling through space for 20 years, and the sight still made him feel small. His vessel, the Harmony's Promise, was one of Earth's finest diplomatic ships. Today it carried humanity's hopes toward the Galactic Council's capital world. The message had arrived 3 weeks ago. The Council needed humanity's help with an urgent matter. They called it a critical security briefing. Hyun-woo didn't know what to expect, but he trusted the Council. For 75 years, humans had worked alongside 12 elder species, keeping peace across 847 civilizations. It was an honor to serve. Ambassador Ji-won walked onto the bridge, her formal robes flowing behind her. She smiled at Hyun-woo, though her eyes showed worry. "Have you heard anything new from the Council?" she asked. "Nothing yet," Hyun-woo replied. "They're keeping quiet about this threat. Whatever it is, it must be serious." Dr. Yoon-ji looked up from her science station. She was the ship's lead xenobiologist, brilliant and careful in her work. "I've been reviewing the data they sent us. Something feels wrong about it. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases." "Maybe it's a new type of threat," Ji-won suggested. "The galaxy is vast. We can't know everything." Yoon-ji frowned, but said nothing more. She returned to her work, her fingers dancing across the holographic displays. Hyun-woo noticed her concern but pushed it aside. They would have answers soon enough. The Harmony's Promise dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Nexus Prime. The planet gleamed like a jewel in the darkness, its surface covered in crystalline towers and floating cities. Thousands of ships orbited the world, representing every species in the Council. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "We're being hailed," the communications officer announced. "The Council welcomes us. They're directing us to the ceremonial dock." "Ceremonial?" Hyun-woo raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual for a security briefing." Ji-won straightened her robes. "Perhaps they want to honor us before the mission. Let's not question their hospitality." The ship descended through layers of traffic control, guided by automated systems toward a massive docking platform. As they approached, Hyun-woo saw something that made his breath catch. Thousands of beings lined the platform holding lights and banners. Music filled the communication channels, strange and beautiful melodies from a dozen worlds. "They're celebrating," Ji-won whispered. "They're celebrating us." The next few hours passed in a blur of ceremonies and speeches. Council Prime Velthar, a towering crystalline being who had led for 3 centuries, greeted them personally. His voice resonated through the grand hall like wind through crystal caves. "Humanity has proven itself worthy," Velthar announced to the assembled delegates. "In 75 years you have brought peace where there was conflict. You have shown courage where others showed fear. Today we ask for your help once more." Holographic displays flickered to life around the hall. They showed images of deep space regions far beyond the Council's normal territory. Dark shapes moved in the void, consuming everything in their path. "The Devourers," Velthar said, his voice heavy with ancient fear. "They have awakened at the galaxy's edge. We thought them myths, legends from before the Council's founding. We were wrong. They are real, and they are coming." The images showed planets stripped bare, stars dimmed and dying. Whatever these Devourers were, they left nothing but emptiness behind. Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. "Why do you need us specifically?" Ji-won asked. "The Council has vast military forces." "Because humans are exceptional warriors," another Council member said. This one was reptilian, with scales that shifted colors as it spoke. "Your tactics, your adaptability, your refusal to surrender even when facing impossible odds. These qualities make you perfect for leading the expedition." Ji-won glanced at Hyun-woo. He could see the pride in her eyes, mixed with uncertainty. "We would be honored to help," she said carefully. "What would this expedition require?" The Council's military advisor, Admiral Thexelon, stepped forward. His race was known for cold efficiency and perfect military records. "We estimate you'll need 40% of your fleet, 300 warships, 150,000 personnel. The Council will provide support ships and supply lines. Together, we will eliminate this threat before it reaches inhabited space. The number shocked Hyun-woo. 40% of Earth's entire military force. It was a massive commitment. But if the threat was real, if these devourers truly existed, then humanity had no choice. They couldn't let the galaxy burn while Earth stood by safely. We need to consult with our government, Ji-won said. This decision is too large for us to make alone. Of course, Velthar agreed. Take the time you need. But please, understand the urgency. Every day we delay, the devourers grow stronger. That night, aboard the Harmony's Promise, the human delegation argued long into the night. Some wanted to agree immediately. Others urged caution. Admiral Tae-yang, watching from Mars via quantum communication, remained silent for a long time. Do we trust them? He finally asked. They've never given us reason not to, Ji-won replied. 75 years of cooperation. They could have eliminated us when we first reached the stars, but they welcomed us instead. Dr. Yoon-ji, what's your analysis of the threat data? Tae-yang asked. Yoon-ji pulled up her research on a shared display. That's what worries me. The data is incomplete. There are gaps in the historical records, inconsistencies in the energy readings. I've been trying to correlate it with known phenomena, but nothing matches perfectly. Could it be real but just poorly documented? Hyun-woo suggested. Maybe, Yoon-ji admitted. Or maybe there's something they're not telling us. In the end, duty won over doubt. Earth agreed to the expedition. Over the next 6 weeks, the human fleet assembled. 300 warships from massive dreadnoughts to small, fast corvettes. Thousands of support personnel, medical staff, engineers, and soldiers. Families said goodbye, uncertain when they would see their loved ones again. Hyun-woo walked through the docks on Mars, watching the preparations. Young pilots ran final checks on their fighters. Engineers loaded massive cargo containers onto transport ships. Everyone believed they were heading out to save the galaxy. Dr. Yoon-ji found him standing alone near the viewing window. I've been working on the Council's data every night, she said quietly. I managed to decrypt some of their internal communications. Fragment files that weren't meant to be in the package they sent us. What did you find? She handed him a datapad. On it, a single line of text glowed in harsh red letters. The human variable must be eliminated. Proceed with protocol extinction. Hyun-woo's blood turned cold. This could be a mistake, a mistranslation. I checked it 17 times, Yoon-ji said. Different translation algorithms, consultation with linguistic experts. It always says the same thing. Have you told anyone else? Only you. If I'm wrong, if this is somehow taken out of context, I could destroy 75 years of peace. But if I'm right. Hyun-woo looked out at the fleet, at the hundreds of ships preparing to jump into the unknown. We're already committed. The fleet launches in 2 days, but I'll tell Admiral Tae-yang. We'll proceed carefully. Yoon-ji nodded, but her face showed fear. I hope I'm wrong, Commander. I really hope I'm wrong. 2 days later, the human fleet departed. 300 ships jumped into faster-than-light travel, heading toward the void reaches where the supposed threat waited. Families watched from Earth, proud and terrified. The news called it humanity's greatest military expedition. No one knew. They were watching the beginning of humanity's darkest day. The void reaches earned its name honestly. Space here felt empty in ways that made experienced spacers nervous. Strange gravitational waves pulled at ships, making navigation difficult. Sensor readings flickered and died without warning. It was the perfect place to hide something dangerous, or the perfect place to spring a trap. Captain Subin commanded the dreadnought Indomitable from her tactical station. She had served in Earth's fleet for 15 years, fighting pirates and protecting colonies. This felt different. Her instincts, honed through countless battles, screamed warnings she couldn't explain. Contact Admiral Tae-yang, she ordered her communications officer. Ask for permission to run advanced sensor sweeps before we proceed deeper. Message sent, Captain. He's responding now. Admiral Tae-yang's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired, older than his 53 years. Captain Subin, what's your concern? The tactical situation feels wrong, sir. We're spread across too much space. If something attacks, we can't support each other quickly enough. I share your concern, Tae Yang admitted, but Council Admiral Thexelon insists we maintain this formation. He says it's necessary to cover the search area effectively. Ahead of the main fleet, Lieutenant Jae-sung piloted his reconnaissance corvette through the nebula clouds. The Swift Shadow was one of the smallest ships in the fleet, fast and nearly invisible to most sensors. His job was simple: scout ahead, find the Devourers, report back. What he found instead turned his stomach to ice. "This is Swift Shadow to Fleet Command," he transmitted urgently. "I found something. It's not the Devourers. It's weapons platforms, hundreds of them Council design. They're powered down but still active. Someone placed them here deliberately." Static answered him. His communications were being jammed. "Command, do you copy? This is a trap." The Council, energy beams cut through space, vaporizing the Swift Shadow in an instant. Jae-sung never finished his warning. Aboard the Harmony's Promise, Dr. Eunji was monitoring the fleet's sensor data when every display suddenly turned red. "Commander!" Energy spikes all around us. "It's the Council ships. They're powering weapons." Hyunwoo grabbed his command chair. "Defensive formations." All ships raised shields and the universe exploded into violence. 2,000 Council ships opened fire simultaneously. Their weapons had been disguised as sensor arrays hidden in plain sight. Hundreds of human vessels died in the first 30 seconds, torn apart before they could even react. Shields failing, someone screamed aboard the Indomitable. Captain Subin watched her tactical display dissolve into chaos. Everywhere she looked, human ships were dying. The Council's allied fleet had become an executioner's firing squad. "Return fire," she commanded. "Target their command ships. Make every shot count." The Indomitable's massive cannons roared to life. One Council cruiser exploded, then another. But for every enemy ship destroyed, 5 more took its place. The mathematics of the situation were brutal and simple. 300 human ships against 2,000 enemies. Admiral Tae Yang stood frozen on the bridge of Terra's Pride, watching the massacre unfold. His tactical officers shouted reports, but the words blurred together into noise. This wasn't a battle. It was genocide. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Council Admiral Thexelon," the communications officer said. "Put it on screen." The reptilian's face appeared, his scales shifting through cold colors. "Admiral Tae Yang, you may cease your resistance. You have lost. Surrender your ships and we will grant your personnel quick deaths." "Why?" Tae Yang's voice was barely a whisper. 75 years of peace. "We trusted you." "That was your mistake," Thexelon replied. "The Council has watched humanity for decades. Your technological advancement, your aggressive expansion, your military strength. Within a century, you would have challenged us for dominance. We decided to act first. You call this genocide. We call it survival." The transmission cut off. Energy beams slammed into Terra's Pride, overwhelming the flagship's shields. Fires erupted across the bridge. Tae Yang felt heat on his face, smelled burning metal and flesh. He activated the emergency broadcast system, transmitting on every frequency. "All human ships, this is Admiral Tae Yang. They've betrayed us. They planned this from the beginning. Protocol Ghost Dragon is now active. Scatter into the nebula. Fight them for every meter of space. Make them pay for every human life they take." He turned to his data officer. "Launch all black box recorders toward any listening posts you can reach. Earth needs to know what happened here. They need to know we died fighting." "Launching now, sir." Terra's Pride shuddered as another barrage hit. The main display showed human ships dying everywhere. But some were fighting back. The Indomitable had formed a defensive position with 6 other dreadnoughts, their combined firepower creating a wall of destruction. Dozens of Council ships burned around them. Smaller vessels scattered into the nebula, using the sensor-dampening clouds for cover. They couldn't win, but they could make the Council pay dearly for this massacre. Aboard the damaged Harmony's Promise, Commander Hyunwoo held onto his chair as the ship spun out of control. One engine was gone. Life support was failing. Half his crew was dead. "Dr. Yoonji," he called out through the smoke. "Are you alive?" "Barely," she coughed. "Main computer core is intact. I'm transferring all our data to a communications drone." Chief Engineer Minji crawled across the broken bridge, her uniform torn and bloody. I can get that drone launched, Doctor, but we need to modify it for faster-than-light travel. Otherwise, it'll take years to reach Earth. Do it, Hyunwoo ordered. Get that information home. Earth needs to know the truth. The two women worked frantically, rewiring systems, rerouting power from dying systems. Around them, the battle raged on. The Indomitable finally succumbed to concentrated fire, its hull breaking apart in brilliant explosions. Captain Subin and her crew of 3,000 died as heroes, taking 47 council ships with them. One by one, humanity's finest vessels were destroyed. Pilots fought to the last missile. Engineers kept damaged ships flying until the very end. Soldiers fired until their weapons ran dry, then used whatever they could find as weapons. The council had expected an easy victory. They got a bloodbath. What should have taken hours stretched into days. The human fleet refused to surrender, refused to die quietly. They scattered through the void reaches, turning the nebula into a graveyard for both sides. 3 days after the initial attack, only 47 human ships remained. They were damaged, low on ammunition, running on emergency power, but they were still fighting. Hyunwoo watched from the crippled Harmony's Promise as Minji launched their communications drone. The small device disappeared into faster-than-light travel, carrying evidence of the Council's betrayal toward Earth. Will it make it? Yoonji asked quietly. I don't know, Hyunwoo admitted, but it's our only chance. Earth needs to know what happened here. They need to prepare for what's coming. Ambassador Jiwon, injured and barely conscious, was strapped into her chair. She looked at Hyunwoo with sad eyes. We believed them. We actually believed they were our friends. We all did, Hyunwoo said. That was our mistake. We thought the universe worked like we do. We thought everyone valued peace and cooperation. We were wrong. Outside, the last few human ships fought their final battle. The Swift Vengeance, the Eternal Watch, the Pride of Soul. One by one, they fell silent. But each took multiple enemy vessels with them. The Council would win this battle. But they had learned a terrible lesson. Humans didn't die easily. Even facing impossible odds, even knowing they couldn't win, humanity fought with a ferocity that shocked their enemies. As the Harmony's Promise finally lost power, its systems failing one by one, Hyunwoo recorded one last message. His voice was calm, accepting. To whoever finds this recording, we were betrayed by those we trusted. The Galactic Council lured us into a trap and murdered 150,000 humans. We fought back as hard as we could. We hope Earth receives our warning in time, and we hope they make the Council regret this day. The recording ended. The Harmony's Promise drifted dead in space. Just one more piece of wreckage in a field of thousands. But 8 light-years away, a small communications drone raced toward Earth, carrying proof of the greatest betrayal in human history. The Council thought they had eliminated the human threat. They had no idea what they had actually done. They had awakened something far more dangerous than any alien invasion. They had awakened humanity's fury. Young-ho sat alone in the Pluto monitoring station, drinking his 3rd cup of coffee. Working deep space communications was usually boring. Ships passed by occasionally. Automated probes sent their data, and mostly he watched empty space do nothing interesting. Then every alarm in the station started screaming at once. What the hell? He jumped to his console, fingers flying across the controls. An emergency beacon was broadcasting on every military frequency. The signal was faint, damaged, but unmistakable. It carried Admiral Tae-Yang's command codes. Young-ho's hands shook as he downloaded the data package. It took 3 hours to retrieve everything. The drone systems were failing, its data corrupted by damage. But enough survived. More than enough. He watched the recordings in silence. His face went pale, then red with rage. When the final video ended, he reached for the emergency communication system with trembling fingers. Pluto Station, to Earth Defense Command. Priority Alpha. We have incoming data from the fleet. You need to see this immediately. 8 hours later, President Hyo-rin sat in the Emergency Command Center beneath Seoul, surrounded by Earth's military and civilian leaders. The room was silent except for the sounds coming from the speakers. Everyone watched the recordings Young-ho had recovered. They saw Admiral Tae-Yang's final moments. They heard Ambassador Jiwon's desperate pleas for explanation, met only with weapon fire. They witnessed 150,000 humans murdered in cold blood by species they had called friends for 75 years. But worst of all, they heard the intercepted Council communications. Dr. Yunji had managed to decrypt dozens of messages before she died. The messages revealed everything. The Council had planned this for years. They viewed humanity as an evolutionary threat. Too aggressive, too innovative, too dangerous. Within a century, humans would surpass the Council's elder species technologically. Rather than compete or cooperate, the Council chose elimination. They didn't even give us a choice, General Kyung-soo said quietly. He was Earth's chief of military operations, a veteran of every major conflict in the last 30 years. They decided we were guilty of being too successful. President Hyo-rin was a former naval officer herself. She had served on ships that patrolled the outer colonies, protecting human expansion into space. She understood war, but this was different. This was murder disguised as peacekeeping. How much of our fleet is left? She asked. According to these recordings, maybe 47 ships escaped into the nebula, Kyung-soo replied. We have to assume they're all dead by now. The Council would have hunted them down. That means we've lost 40% of our military strength in a single day. And the Council will come for us next, Captain Yuna added. She ran Earth's intelligence services, and her mind was already calculating scenarios. They'll claim the fleet was destroyed by the Devourers or some other fiction. They'll offer to help protect Earth. Then, when our guard is down, they'll finish what they started. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. Earth stood alone against an alliance of 12 elder species controlling 847 civilizations. The mathematics were impossible. Unless, Yuna continued, they don't know about the ghost fleet. Every head turned toward her. President Hyo-rin leaned forward. Continue. For 75 years, we've played the role of grateful junior partners. We joined the Council, followed their rules, used their approved technologies, but we never stopped preparing for the worst. The Ghost Fleet exists precisely for this scenario. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared showing warships unlike anything in Earth's public military. They were larger, faster, armed with weapons that violated every Council treaty on warfare. We've been building these in secret since we first joined the Council, Yuna explained. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt, automated factories on Mars's polar ice caps, research stations that officially don't exist. While we smiled and cooperated, we never forgot that we were alone out here. General Kyung-soo studied the specifications. His eyes widened as he read the capabilities. These ships, some of these weapon systems are theoretical. We didn't have the technology to build them. We do now, Dr. Sung-hoon spoke for the first time. He was the director of classified weapons research, a man whose work was so secret that most people didn't know he existed. We've been reverse engineering Council technology for decades, improving on their designs, developing systems they deemed too dangerous or unethical to pursue. He pulled up another set of files. Project Ragnarok has been active for 30 years. We've created weapons that can destabilize stars, ships that move through dimensions the Council doesn't acknowledge exist, artificial intelligence warfare systems that violate every treaty we signed. Show me, President Hyo-rin ordered. For the next 3 hours, Sung-hoon presented Earth's secret military capabilities. The Nova Lance, which channeled solar radiation through dimensional rifts, stealth ships that could phase in and out of normal space, AI systems that could coordinate battle tactics faster than any organic mind, gravity bombs that could collapse hyperspace lanes. We stayed peaceful because we chose to be, Sung-hoon said, not because we had to be. The Council just took that choice away from us. President Hyo-rin stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Seoul's towers stretching toward the sky. Millions of people lived in this city alone, billions more across Earth and the colonies, all of them depending on the decisions made in this room. If we go to war, she said slowly, millions will die, maybe billions. The Council has resources we can't match. If we don't go to war, we'll be exterminated, Captain Yuna replied. They've already decided we're too dangerous to exist. They murdered 150,000 of our people to prove it. Madam President, they left us no choice. What about diplomacy? Could we negotiate? With whom? General Kyung-soo asked bitterly. The Council that just committed genocide? They'll smile and promise peace while preparing the next massacre. We trusted them once. Look what it cost us. President Hyo-rin thought about Admiral Tae-yang, who had served Earth faithfully for 35 years. She thought about young pilots like Lieutenant Jae-sung, who died trying to warn his fleet. She thought about Dr. Yoon-ji, who worked until her final moment to expose the truth. Activate the Ghost Fleet, she ordered. Recall every human from Council space immediately. Any diplomatic personnel, any colonists on Council worlds, anyone who might be used as a hostage. Bring them all home. And then? Kyung-soo asked. Then we show the Council what humanity really looks like when you back us into a corner. Her voice was cold, harder than steel. They wanted to eliminate us because they feared what we might become. Let's show them their fears were justified. Across Earth's solar system, hidden facilities burst into life. On Mars, beneath kilometers of polar ice, massive dreadnoughts powered up for the first time. These ships were 5 times larger than anything in Earth's public fleet, armed with weapons that could crack planets. In the asteroid belt, automated factories shifted production to war materials. Missiles, ammunition, armor plating, resources that had been stockpiled for decades now flowed toward assembly points. The most impressive facility was hidden on the dark side of Luna. Here, in massive underground caverns, the Vengeance fleet was being assembled. These ships were built for one purpose: to deliver overwhelming force against species that had superior numbers, but had never faced an opponent willing to use every weapon imaginable. Dr. Sung-hoon personally oversaw the arming of the fleet. Each ship received Novalance projectors, dimensional shift drives, and AI tactical systems. He watched as crews trained on simulators, learning to fight in ways the Council had never imagined. How long until we're ready? President Hyo-rin asked during one of her visits. 8 months for full readiness, Sung-hoon replied. We need time to finish construction, train crews, and position supply lines. But, Madam President, once we launch, there's no going back. The Council will know we've been preparing for war all along. Every treaty we signed will be exposed as a lie. They murdered 150,000 humans based on a lie, Hyo-rin said flatly. I can live with being called a liar if it means our species survives. During those 8 months, Earth transformed. Every factory retooled for military production. Universities focused on weapons research. The news services, once they learned the truth, broadcast the massacre footage continuously. Every human who saw those recordings felt their blood turn cold, then hot with rage. Volunteers flooded the recruitment centers. People who had lost family members at the Void Reaches demanded to join the Vengeance fleet. Captain Subin's sister became a fighter pilot. Lieutenant Jae-sung's father joined as a gunner despite being 60 years old. The Council, meanwhile, celebrated their successful operation. They announced that the human fleet had been destroyed while fighting the Devourers. They praised humanity's sacrifice and offered to help protect Earth with Council ships. President Hyo-rin politely declined their offer. She claimed Earth needed time to grieve. The Council accepted this, believing their plan had worked perfectly. They had 8 months to enjoy that belief. Then humanity would teach them the cost of their mistake. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun stood on the bridge of the Eternal Fury, watching the countdown timer reach 0. Around him, 400 warships powered up their weapons systems. This was the Vengeance fleet, Earth's answer to the Council's betrayal. He was 58 years old, and his daughter had died at the Void Reaches. She had been a navigator aboard the Terra's Pride, 24 years old with her whole life ahead of her. The Council had burned her alive along with 150,000 others. Dong-hyun would make them regret that decision for whatever time they had left. All ships report ready, Admiral, his tactical officer announced. Commander Bora had lost her entire family in the massacre. Her husband, 2 children, and her parents had all been aboard different vessels. She served now with cold efficiency, emotion buried deep beneath layers of professional duty. Begin the operation, Dong-hyun ordered. Target Kelvor Station. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. They moved through dimensions the Council didn't fully understand, using technology Earth had developed in secret. When they emerged, they were exactly where they needed to be. Kelvor Station hung in space like a metal moon. It was the Council's forward military base, home to 50,000 personnel and 83 warships. The station had stood for 400 years, a symbol of Council military might. In 14 seconds, it would become humanity's opening statement. Captain Haewon commanded the stealth destroyer Phantom's Wrath. Her ship and 9 others were invisible to Council sensors. Using phase technology that shifted them slightly out of normal space, she guided her vessel through Kelvor's defensive perimeter without triggering a single alarm. We're in position, she transmitted to the fleet. Ready to drop their shields on your mark. Mark, Dong-hyun replied. Haewon's ship fired a single specialized missile. It passed through Kelvor's shields as if they didn't exist, impacted the main generator complex and detonated. The station's protective barriers collapsed instantly. Every weapon in the Vengeance fleet fired at once. The Nova Lance was humanity's crown jewel of destructive technology. It opened dimensional rifts directly into stars, channeling concentrated solar radiation across light years in an instant. Kelvor Station was hit by the equivalent of having a star dropped on top of it. The fortress that had stood for centuries evaporated. Metal turned to plasma. Rock turned to vapor. The 83 Council ships docked there never had a chance to launch. They simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the molecular level. The shockwave destroyed another dozen ships that had been patrolling nearby. In total, 95 Council vessels were gone in less than 15 seconds. 0 human casualties, target destroyed, Bora reported. Her voice was steady, but Dong-hyun saw tears on her face. Tears of grief or satisfaction, he couldn't tell. Maybe both. Send the message, he ordered. A communications package broadcast across every Council frequency. It contained footage from the Void Reaches massacre, the intercepted Council communications, and a simple statement. You declared war on humanity. Now you'll learn what that means. Across Council space, panic erupted. Species that had never feared anything suddenly understood they were facing an opponent, unlike any they had encountered. Humanity had hidden its true strength for 75 years, pretending to be junior partners while building weapons of unprecedented destruction. Council Prime Velthar convened an emergency session. His crystalline form pulsed with angry colors as he addressed the assembly. Mobilize every fleet. Call in debts from all member civilizations. Humanity must be destroyed before they can strike again. But humanity was already striking again. Engineer Jun Seo had spent 12 years developing the gravity bomb. It was simple in concept. Detonate a device that would collapse the hyperspace lanes connecting different regions of space. Ships couldn't travel faster than light without those lanes. Collapse them and you trapped entire fleets. The Council rushed 5,000 warships toward the Arcturus Junction, planning to intercept the human fleet. They arrived to find the junction's hyperspace lanes had been destroyed. They were trapped in normal space, cut off from reinforcements, facing an enemy they had underestimated. The human fleet emerged from stealth, surrounding the Council armada. 400 ships against 5,000. The Council commanders smiled, certain of their numerical advantage. They stopped smiling when the shooting started. Captain Haiwan's Phantom's Wrath phased in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy ships, firing and vanishing before they could return fire. In 30 minutes, she personally destroyed 27 Council vessels. Commander Bora led Reaper Squad in boarding operations. They didn't fight to capture ships. They fought to send messages. Her team would breach a Council vessel, fight their way to the bridge and upload footage from the Void Reaches to every display. Then they would leave, letting the crew contemplate what their government had done. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships used tactics the Council had never seen. They coordinated through AI systems that processed information faster than any organic brain. They used weapons that violated every civilized rule of warfare. They showed no mercy. When the shooting finally stopped, 4,400 Council ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 89 vessels. The survivors retreated into the wreckage, shocked and broken. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun surveyed the battlefield from his command chair. This was the largest space battle in galactic history, and humanity had won decisively. But he felt no joy, only tired satisfaction. We've made our point, he said to Bora. Now they know we can hurt them. It's not enough, she replied. We need to make them understand they can never feel safe again. Not until they've paid for every human life they took. Before Dong-hyun could respond, an incoming transmission interrupted them. The sender was Council diplomat Krishala, broadcasting from Nexus Prime. Her species resembled large insects, but she spoke perfect human English. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun, I am one of 3 Council members who opposed the genocide. We tried to warn humanity, but we were silenced and imprisoned. I escaped only recently. Please, I beg you to listen. Why should I trust anything from the Council? Dong-hyun asked coldly. Because not all of us agreed with what was done to you, Krishala said. The Valari, the Thon, and the Kresh voted against the massacre. We were outvoted and suppressed. Council Prime Velthar and his faction acted alone. using the Council's name to justify genocide. She transmitted documents supporting her claim. Records of council votes, arguments made in secret sessions, evidence of internal opposition. If she was telling the truth, then the Council wasn't a unified entity. It had fractures humanity could exploit. "What do you want from me?" Dong-hyun asked. "A chance at peace," Krishala replied. "I know you have no reason to believe in that word anymore. Your people were betrayed terribly, but continued war will destroy us all. There must be another way." Dong-hyun thought about his daughter. She had believed in peace, had chosen to serve aboard a diplomatic vessel instead of a warship. The Council had killed her for that belief. "Tell me, Council Diplomat Krishala, where is my daughter? Where is Ambassador Jiwon? Where are the 150,000 humans your Council murdered? Can your peace bring them back?" "No," Krishala admitted quietly. "Nothing can undo what was done. But more death won't honor them either. It will only create more graves. You want peace? Then the Council will surrender unconditionally," Dong-hyun said. "Every species involved in the genocide will stand trial. Every warship will be decommissioned. Every secret will be revealed. Only then will we discuss peace. Those terms would destroy the Council as it exists." "Good," Dong-hyun replied. "An organization that commits genocide doesn't deserve to exist. We'll be arriving at Nexus Prime in 72 hours. Prepare your surrender or prepare to die. Those are your only choices." He ended the transmission. Commander Bora looked at him with approval. "You think they'll surrender?" "No," Dong-hyun said honestly. "They'll fight to the last ship rather than admit they were wrong. But I needed her to understand that we're not going to stop. We're not going to forgive. We're going to see this through to the end. Whatever that end looks like." The Vengeance fleet set course for Nexus Prime. Every crew member knew what awaited them there. The largest battle in history, the final confrontation between humanity and the Council. Many wouldn't survive, but they would make sure the Council remembered this war forever. They would ensure that no species ever again looked at humans and saw easy prey. Nexus Prime hung in space like a dying star, surrounded by the last great fleet of the Galactic Council. 1,200 warships formed defensive rings around the capital world, supported by the most advanced defense grid in the galaxy. Council Prime Velthar had bet everything on this final stand. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun watched the enemy formations from his command chair. His fleet had been reduced to 301 ships during the campaign across Council space. But every remaining vessel was crewed by veterans who had learned to fight with calculated fury. "Begin the psychological operation," he ordered. Captain Haewon's stealth teams had been busy. They had planted holographic projectors across Nexus Prime's upper atmosphere. Now those projectors activated, filling the sky with images. The faces of 150,000 dead humans appeared above the capital. Each face displayed for 3 seconds before fading to the next. Names, ages, occupations scrolled beneath each image. A young pilot who loved painting. An engineer who had just gotten married. A doctor who volunteered at colony hospitals. The display would take 12 hours to show every victim. Every citizen on Nexus Prime would see exactly what their council had done in their name. "Incoming transmission from the surface," the communications officer announced. "It's Commander Hyunwoo." Dong-hyun's eyes widened. Hyunwoo had been declared dead 8 months ago, killed at the void reaches. "Put him through." The commander's face appeared on screen, older and scarred but alive. "Admiral, I'm transmitting from a secured location on Nexus Prime. I have 47 survivors with me, including Ambassador Jiwon. We've been conducting guerrilla operations against Council facilities for months. How did you survive?" The Harmony's promise was disabled, not destroyed. The Council captured us, planning to use us as proof of humanity's aggression. They kept us imprisoned while their propaganda teams fabricated evidence. But 3 weeks ago, we escaped with help from the Valari resistance. Another face appeared beside Hyunwoo's. Ambassador Jiwon looked thin and tired, but her eyes burned with determination. "Admiral, I have evidence that will change everything. The genocide wasn't a council decision. It was a conspiracy by 7 species who feared losing their dominance. The other 5 council members opposed it and were silenced." She transmitted files that had been smuggled out of council archives. Records showed heated debates, threats, and finally a coup. Council Prime Velthar and his allies had acted without full council approval, gambling that success would legitimize their actions. "We also have proof of something else," Jiwon continued. "The Valari, Thon, and Kresh tried to warn us, They sent messages through back channels, but those messages were intercepted and destroyed. They attempted to physically stop the massacre and were imprisoned alongside us. President Hyorin's voice joined the transmission from Earth. She had been monitoring the situation in real time. This changes the strategic picture. We're not facing a unified council. We're facing a faction that committed treason against their own government. It doesn't change what they did, Dong-hyun said flatly. 150,000 humans are still dead. No, it doesn't, Hyorin agreed. But it gives us options beyond total annihilation. Admiral, if we destroy Nexus Prime, we kill billions of innocents who had no say in the genocide. We become the monsters they feared. Dong-hyun closed his eyes. He thought about his daughter again. Would she want him to kill billions in her name? Would any of the dead want their deaths used to justify more death? Before he could answer, another transmission interrupted. This one came from the council chambers themselves. Elder Kreshela appeared, flanked by representatives from the Valari, Thon, and Kresh species. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun, we have arrested Council Prime Velthar and his co-conspirators. We are transmitting video proof now. The screen split to show Velthar in restraints, his crystalline body dim with defeat. Around him stood the leaders of the 7 species who had orchestrated the genocide. These individuals committed crimes against your people and against the principles of the Council itself, Krishala continued. They will face trial for genocide, conspiracy, and treason. But we ask that you hold your fire. The civilians on Nexus Prime are innocent. The majority of Council species are innocent. This was the work of a fearful few, not a galactic conspiracy. Commander Bora turned to Dong-hyun, her hand resting on her weapon controls. Admiral, we have firing solutions on Nexus Prime's population centers. One word, and we can end this. He looked at her tear-stained face at the pain she carried every day. He looked around the bridge at his crew, many of whom had lost families at the void reaches. Every one of them deserved vengeance, but vengeance and justice weren't the same thing. Stand down, he ordered quietly. Cease all offensive operations. Open a channel to President Hyorin. Sir? Bora's voice was shocked. They killed our families. They destroyed our fleet. How can we just stop? Because if we kill billions of innocents, we prove Velthar right. We prove humanity is too dangerous to exist. He met her eyes. Your children died because someone feared what humanity might become. Don't let their deaths turn us into that fear. Bora stood frozen, torn between rage and reason. Finally, she stepped back from her station. Yes, sir. President Hyorin's face filled the main screen. Admiral, what are your recommendations? We accept their surrender, but on our terms. The guilty parties stand trial under human supervision. The council as it existed is dissolved. A new governing body is established with representation that prevents any faction from committing atrocities, and humanity gets permanent seats in the new leadership structure. You're asking them to completely restructure galactic governance. They committed genocide, Madam President. They don't get to dictate terms. Either they accept fundamental change or we continue this war until nobody's left standing. The negotiations took 3 days. The council's defenders stood down. Velthar and 127 co-conspirators were transferred to human custody. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Their trials swift. They were found guilty on all counts. But humanity didn't execute them. Instead, they were exiled to a monitoring station at the galaxy's edge, where they would spend the rest of their lives documenting the consequences of their choices. Every day they would record messages to future civilizations, explaining how fear and pride had led them to genocide. It was a punishment worse than death. Being forced to face what they had done. Forever, the Galactic Council was formally dissolved. In its place rose the Federation of Free Worlds with a constitution designed to prevent tyranny. No species could hold more than 15% of the vote. Decisions required broad consensus. And critically, military action required approval from species that would actually participate, preventing proxy wars. Humanity was given 4 permanent seats on the Security Directorate, alongside the Valari, Thon, and Kresh. The balance of power had shifted permanently. At the void reaches, a memorial was constructed. 150,000 crystalline pillars rose from an artificial platform, each engraved with a name and a face. Humans called it the Field of Remembrance. Other species called it a warning. 5 years after the war, Ambassador Jiwon stood before the Federation Assembly as its first chancellor. Elder Krishala served as her deputy. a symbol of the cooperation that had saved billions of lives. We were tested, Jiwan told the assembled delegates, pushed to the edge of extinction by those who feared us. We responded with fury the galaxy had never witnessed. We could have chosen annihilation. We chose justice instead. She paused, letting her words sink in. Not because we were weak, not because we were merciful, but because we were strong enough to remember who we are, strong enough to honor our dead by building something better than what we lost. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun retired to a small house by the ocean. He spent his days fishing, writing memoirs, and occasionally lecturing at the military academy. The Vengeance fleet was decommissioned, its ships converted to exploration vessels. But deep in classified facilities, the Ghost Fleet remained operational. Newer, more advanced ships were always under construction. Humanity would never again be caught unprepared. The lesson of the void reaches was written into military doctrine, taught to every officer, remembered by every citizen. Commander Bo-Ra took command of the Federation's Joint Defense Force. The species that had tried to eliminate humanity now looked to human leadership for protection. It was ironic but also appropriate. Humanity had proven it could fight when necessary and show restraint when possible. That combination made them respected rather than feared. Commander Hyunwoo accepted a position as Federation ambassador to Earth. He split his time between the homeworld and Nexus Prime, working to rebuild trust between species. It was slow, difficult work. Some humans could never forgive. Some council species would never fully trust humanity again. But peace wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing not to let the past dictate the future. 10 years after the war, a human colony ship discovered an ancient alien artifact that threatened multiple star systems. The Federation responded with a joint task force, human warships working alongside Valari science vessels, Thon support ships, and Kresh diplomatic teams. They succeeded because they worked together, because they had learned that cooperation was stronger than domination, because humanity had shown them a different path.